can beat you so many ways.
Yeah. I remember I've said it on this show too, Brian Burke's thing about, if you play 4 rounds, you're going to have to play 4 different ways, whether it's heavy or fast or skilled or whatever it may be. And they seem to be able to do it any different way. I think, again, I'm not saying that they're unbeatable, but what I am saying is when they're on, when they play their game, it's incredible to watch. Like, this is they have now beat every team they've played in the playoffs by 4 goals in a single game in the series. Like, there's been a game where the other team just can't handle them. They've scored 6+ goals 6 times in the playoffs, 5+, 8 of the last 11 games. 5 goals, 8 of the last 11 games in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And their whole thing, GMs are going to watch them and go, we got to be tougher. It's like, no, man. No, they're not just tough.
Can I tell you something? That when I think of this Florida Panther team, I don't think about them being tougher than their opponent. I don't think about anything. The number one thing, and I've said this to you before, is they pass the puck better than any team I've seen in the last 20 years. They move the puck. It's not that Sam Bennett's bumping goalies or they trash talk or they find a way to hurt you or they're just tougher. No, they pass the puck better than any team. And I include that Oilers, I include Carolina, I include the Maple Leafs. Nobody, when they're hitting their high note, they move it like the Red Army Russians, man. I'm telling you, they can move it east to west. And they can make direct passes. They can rim it around. They could string 5 passes together before you can blink.
Yeah.
And it is fun to watch.
That Ekblad goal last night where they pass it into the bumper, slip it to him backdoor. It was
Globetrotters.
It was a cherry on top for that game. The fact that they're doing all this on top of being good defensively and being this physical, whatever, I am working on an article right now that'll probably come out tomorrow on what we're talking about here, that when this team is on, like what are GMs going to look at this team and take away from it? And I think a lot of lesser GMs are going to go, whoa, they're physical, they're mean, whatever. I think that's what some teams are going to do. But their best players are 200 feet players. Barkov, Reinhart, these guys, Marchand, go through the list. They play the whole ice. They're physical. They use each other. It really is. I'm not saying the series is over. I'm saying when that team is on, it is something to behold.
No, what you're saying is when they're on, they are unbeatable.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying.
Last night made me feel a lot better about Game 7. The Leafs.
Yeah.
I'm like, they can do that to the Oilers too, eh? That's enjoyable. I enjoyed that. That makes, as a selfish Leaf fan, it made me feel a little bit better.
Yeah.
Just to add to your point is that what teams really need to understand when they watch Florida is that, and just to add to your point, that they could start with Barkov and they can work their way down to the 4th line. And the gap between 1 and 4 is as narrow as anything you'll find. Whereas when you go to...
I'd argue 1 and 3.
Okay.
Like Gadjevich, Greer, Noshik.
No. Okay, they're not as talented, but that 4th line, they come at you.
Yeah.
Like it's relentless.
Right.
From 1 to 4, the forecheck, the time and space that they take away from you is relentless. It keeps coming. And we cover the Leafs closer to as close as anybody out there. Yeah. And that's not the Leafs. The drop off between 1, 2, 3, and 4 is significant.
He dropped Kelly Yarncroc onto that Florida team. It's like
last night. Yeah. Okay, you go through Oilers 1 to 4, and the drop off was significant by the time you got to Kapanen and Brown, and those guys can come back and play well again.
Yep.
But the gap between the lines last night for Edmonton and the drop off of energy and pushback and all of it, night and day compared to Florida.
We got to get a Valley, but I will say, I have to step in and be the one to say this. Being, $20 million over the cap helps your depth.
And taxes.
Well,
right?
no. But like the
Yeah,
Leafs,
yeah.
the Leafs were what were
Oh,
they?
taxes
they,
too,
no,
Sammy.
they were
You're on a roll.
They were barely over the cap. So like, yeah, their worst guys are worse because they're not making as much.
You know what? That's not a bad point.
It's a fair point.
And one worth noting.
But Gary would scream at me if
Well,
I
I
dare
think they're
bring
going
that
to
up.
change it. It sounds like the next CBA
Good.
there will be some sort of playoff cap. Anyways.
Let's go to Steve Alacat, who can tell us all the numbers on state taxes and overage. And what else? What other issues you have, Sammy?
Well, you know what? May I jump in here, guys? They've changed the culture there, and that's why it's attractive. Can I tell you a quick story? It's funny, Sammy, but this wasn't always the case, right? Steve Montador, my best friend growing up, he was about to sign with the Florida Panthers. This is when things were always going sideways in Florida, probably around, I guess, 08, 09-ish. And he turned down a really nice deal. It was something like $3 million times 3 years, and he was going to go to free agency. He went mountain biking in British Columbia, went into a tree, fractured his arm, and then called his agent, hey, we'll take that contract. So, like, I remember Monty saying to me, like, dude, I hated it there. Not that I didn't like Florida, but it didn't feel like hockey. They didn't have a culture at that time. They didn't have anything that was going to get you excited about having an opportunity to win like they do now. So, Sammy, the other side of the conversation is they've created a very desirable place to play hockey and at the highest level.
I fully understand that, but they are $20 million over the cap. So like, that helps. That helps.
Valley,
Two things can be true.
The number one question going into the series next game is who the Edmonton Oilers should start net. But before we go there, just give us your evaluation so far of Bobrovsky versus Skinner, because we know that last year, Game 7, it was just Bobrovsky being that one save better. I could still see the game-winning goal that Reinhart scored last year that I didn't like. But are the Oilers getting out-goalied again in this series?
Yeah,
And
you know what it
did
is?
Did they gamble? Did they gamble of going back to Skinner again?
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
But let's get there together.
Okay.
Yeah, let's get there together. So the first thing I wanted to look at was when goalies are called upon to make a big save in a Stanley Cup final over the last 5 years, are they able to do it? And does it matter when you're looking at the winning goalie versus the losing goalie in that series? Okay, I'm not going to go all the way back, but I'm telling you it's there, and it's pretty fascinating. It's typically about 1 goal every 5 high danger chances. So you can imagine a 2-on-1, a breakaway, those screen deflections that are difficult. The Stanley Cup winning goalies are stopping them at a high rate. I'll run you through a couple because I thought this was interesting. Bobrovsky, the year they lost 3 years ago to Vegas, he was giving up 1 goal every 2.3 high danger chances in the final, in the same series that Adin Hill was only allowing 1 goal every 5. So that was the real separate